good morning, Soraya.
Hi, how are you? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. It's been a month since we've got together in front of a camera.
A month?
Hasn't it?
Wow.
I think so. I think it was like towards the middle or end of December. But
Well, holidays came and went. We're in a new year.
Hey,
You
I got some
got
cool
some
things.
time off.
Yep. Oh yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
I speaking of Christmas, I got some Paisley Underground related Christmas gifts.
Okay.
Most of them I got myself.
Those are the best gifts.
Yeah. So I got these two. Rain Parade Japanese pressings.
Whoa.
So, yeah, they've
Beautiful.
this one when I was able to find it before was like $200-300. But I was able to find a cheaper copy that did not have the OBI strip or the OB strip. So it was $30. But yeah, it doesn't have that strip. And then this one I found for emergency third rail power trip has the strip, but it doesn't have the insert inside. So I bought budget versions, which was pretty cool.
Beautiful though. They look to be in really good condition too.
And my daughter-in-law got me this, which is the Dream Syndicate EP as a 7-inch, a double 7-inch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so pretty cool. So I'm really stoked about that. So thank you, Lex. So she got me that. And one more thing, Dream Syndicate related that you and I
both have.
Yes. So
yeah, I'm hold on. Now I'm gonna grab mine.
So for our listeners, this is the new release, reissue release, yay, of the Dream Syndicates. And they're calling it What Can I Say, No Regrets, but it's actually the Out of Gray album in a booklet format, which we will hopefully be discussing soon.
Yeah.
In further detail. It comes with 3 CDs, an amazing remastered version of Out of the Gray from Jim Hill, the Rain Parade producer, and then a bunch of extra bonus tracks. And it comes with a little booklet that has pictures and put together by our friend Pat Thomas and released by Fire Records.
Yeah.
And there's more to come, but little booklet format that, yeah, we'll talk more about, but man.
But this is, I just got mine literally the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm working my way through it, and
yeah.
It's a great acquisition for anyone's collection.
Agreed. Yeah.
Lord knows we are, at least, I mean, Jeff, you're way ahead of me. I'm still I'm still baby steps, but it's trying to reclaim my collection, but it's a great collection. So
yeah, and we've reached out to some people that participated in this, and we got some plans, not only for that show but for some other shows coming up. And, Steve Wynn is getting ready to go on tour.
Yes, he's getting ready to go back to Europe. These are the things that make me hopeful with everything that's happening, global health wise. Still great to see bands getting out there, and we hear of more dates that are coming. Our friend of the podcast, Derek C, is also planning to be out on tour, and some dates in Northern California, but dates elsewhere here in California later in April. But Jeff, and I know you're looking forward to a few shows in May. So I mean, I'm ready to go back. The last show I saw was the Monkees. Yes. And late great Mike Nesmith has left this earthly bond, but I'm sure, thankfully, we have his music to keep us happy. But that was the last show I went to, and it was the first one in 2 years. I'm ready to go back. So, and I think everyone else is, and with new releases, and I think also Dream Syndicate's working on new music that Steve's posted on his social media pages. Rain Parade has also said they're working on new music. And again, I mentioned Derek C. Gentle Cycle has a new album that'll be forthcoming. So music's coming. Hopefully live music is coming too. I'm ready for all of it.
Yeah. And
okay. But Jeff.
None of that has anything to do with what we're talking about.
Well, no, there is a link because I am going to add one thing.
Okay.
So if our listeners follow Long Riders, Sid Griffin on social media, last week, Sid Griffin teased a song that will be released this week, the week of January the 20th, called Tom Tom, in honor of Tom Stevens.
Mm.
So that's my sneaky way of linking in to this week's topic.
Okay.
So Jeff, what are we talking about this week?
So here we are 10 minutes in, and we're talking about this band, the Unclaimed, which started out with a version that had Sid Griffin in it, along with main Unclaimed founder Shelly Gantz. So we'll be talking about this band and the connection that they had to the Paisley Underground and otherwise. So the Unclaimed is our discussion today.
We took a circuitous route, but we made it.
We did.
Anyways, Jeff, let's get started.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme,
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, agruviar.
Let's get groovy.
So sorry, I think I cut you off there. So why talk about the Unclaimed on a Paisley Underground podcast?
Well, I think one of the first things is the Unclaimed has been mentioned by a number of people that we've talked to as an influence, as someone who got them really excited about wanting to be in a band or start their own band. Okay, Steve said, wanting to be in the Unclaimed, and then that kind of inspired him Dream Syndicate, and also, so I'm gonna hop on this tip just for a second while we get this discussion started.
Okay.
So the Unclaimed has been noted as an influence, right? And we've heard a number of stories about people wanting to be in the Unclaimed. And it all starts with what, Jeff? An ad where?
In the recycler.
In the bloody recycler.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is information I found from a blog from a gentleman named Frank Miller, and it's called Shotgun Solution. So the Unclaimed were always Shelly Gantz's band, and it was in response to an advert in the recycler that Sid Griffin became involved. Gantz's ad to start a band along the lines of the Standells, the Seeds, and 60s garage music immediately appealed to Sid, who had quickly grown tired of playing punk in Death Wish and was more interested in exploring the sound of the 60s, perhaps sensing a change in people's attitude to the music. The pair got together in December of 1978, immediately hit it off, and began looking for the rest of the group. So think of that. First of all, we already know them as a starting point or an influence. Then you look at the intent behind the band, the Seeds, the Standells, 60s garage. And then you have also a paradigm move between punk and, we got punk, and then we've got the 60s influence, and we have, other influences kind of conflating, and it's the early 80s. So we've got new wave, we've got new romantic, we've got all these kind of things kind of gelling. But I think it's really interesting to understand the background of the Unclaimed and where Shelley thought they could be. And other things I've read have seen like 1966, the year 1966, the bands from 1966, the garage sound of 1966 kind of being the spot where they wanted to be. So, and the fact that Sid's in this, and then in another piece I read, it says Sid Griffin's first proper band. And I go, well, he was obviously in bands, so they're all proper.
Yeah.
But perhaps because the Unclaimed had some recordings too. So
Yeah. And in response to that recycler ad that you're talking about, I also read that a member from the Iron Butterfly answered that ad, and the drummer from Blue Cheer answered that ad. So,
right.
Wow. Like, I mean,
okay, that blows my mind.
Right. And so tying into a couple things that you said, I wanted to mention the influence. I think so this was kind of predates the Paisley Underground by a few years, because Shelly Gantz was starting this up I think in the mid 70s, and then like you said, around 78 is when Sid and him started to, really be more serious about the band. I think Michael Quercio was the one that told us that they were a big influence on him as style, if nothing
Right.
else. I mean, he wanted to have his hair like Shelly Gantz and the bangs and all that. And then I remember us talking with an early version of the Pandoras when we were focusing on It's About Time, and especially Gwen was saying that Shelly came from New York. We learned that Shelly Gantz, the leader of the Unclaimed, was in a boarding school, and would listen to the radio, some AM radio or a radio station that was being played at this boarding school, and he was listening to all this music from the late 50s, early 60s, and that's what drove him or kept him going. Wasn't really happy about being in a boarding school, but it was music that carried him through, and he came out to LA and brought some of this music that he discovered in New York, right? And
Right.
Gwen was telling us that he had all these rare compilations and all these rare records. I think I also read that Shelly bought this like fantastic collectibles collection of records, and they were like super rare records that he spent like $1 each or something like that, or under
Right.
$1 for this big collection. So he loved all this rare 60s. I think you said the 66, this garage sound. And you and I did a whole Nuggets series where that release of all this music from that period of time, and we could definitely hear that influence in Unclaimed, that very garagey sound. So
Oh yeah.
so I mean, this definitely was a huge influence on this Paisley Underground scene, having this 80s band, early 80s band, late 70s band doing the 60s music.
Right. And there's evidence of the Unclaimed playing bills with bands like the Bangs and Salvation Army. So there's this in this scene, this kind of 60s psychedelia or psychedelic sound in LA is kind of, they're showing up in the same places. So it's really interesting to think of this very early, and I know we want to start with this EP, which was released in 1980. This really early moment in the 80s where all these things are people are kind of converging and hearing each other, and it's definitely a jumping off point, because where the 60s were the influence, then the bands kind of take it and really develop it on their own. And we've seen it from these 4 central bands of the Paisley Underground, where they take that music, it really goes off in different directions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's look at the first recording, which is an EP called Moxie. So 4 songs, 2 tracks each, 2 by Shelly Gantz, 2 by Sid Griffin. So Jeff, why don't we start with your pick.
Okay.
So in order, it's 4 tracks. Track 1, Time to Time. Track 2, Run From Home. Track 3, The Sorrow. And track 4, Deposition Central. In parentheses, the acid song. So Jeff and I picked songs that are placed differently, but they happen to be even numbers. And also, surprisingly enough, one is a Shelley Gann song and one is a Sid Griffin song. And you definitely hear the garage band sound. It's definitely very present in these songs that we've picked today. So Jeff, what's your first pick?
So I went ahead and I picked a song from the first side, and it's Run From Home, written by Shelley Gantz. It showed up on a compilation. Actually, the band only released 18 songs. So there was the EP and a larger 12-inch that we'll talk about next. And then in 2013, they released another EP. So they didn't have put out a bunch of stuff, but they were included on a number of compilation records. And I think you and I were talking about beforehand that Run From Home, the song that I'm going to play, was included on the Vox label's Battle of the Garage records. But they were also on the Children of Nuggets Rhino box set. I point behind me because I have that box set sitting back there for us to possibly discuss later. But they were also on Battle of the Garages Part 1, the Best of Electric Records compilation, the Best of the Garage revival. So they've been put on a few different garage compilations. But Run From Home comes from Battle of the Garages, the Vox record, and also it's the second song on here. I picked it because the 12-string guitar, which you can hear prominently right off the bat, and it, even though it has this 12-string guitar, it still has that garagey feel to it, and I just love the chiminess of it. And I don't think you can go wrong picking any Unclaimed songs. When I was trying to pick them, I was thinking any of these songs are worthy of being played. So let's go ahead and get started. This is Run From Home from side A of the self-titled, or otherwise known as the Moxie EP, since Moxie was the label that put it out. Here it is, Run From Home.
You want me around, but every time we're out, you're not to be found. If your concern was genuine, you wouldn't have left me alone. I only become unnecessary when I get you home. You could run from home. I always hope that you'd be good to me. But girl, it seems I'll have to let you be. A phantom girl is no better than one that's in my mind. It just became so clear to me, you'll always be unkind. You gotta run from home. Ways have taught me hurt and pain. My tears did fall as in all winter's rain. The longer am I bound to you, and the lower that was your eyes. See you deceptive veil, oh yeah, and your heart was full of lies, and your heart was full of lies. You could have run from home. You could have run from home.
So I think that could have easily fit on that Nuggets compilation set that we
First of all, I want to apologize. My cat is so loud right now. You are not a part of this band. Sorry. Yes, 100% that fits. The sound, the vibe, everything, it fits in perfectly. And you hear that 60s garage band influence, the guitars, the drums, everything about this song just screams it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because Jeff and I we're really fortunate to connect with Massimo Del Pozzo, who through his label re-released, remastered this EP and also the LP Primordial Ooze Flavored. Correct? Yeah, Primordial Ooze. I always mix the order, but anyways, and so the tracks are really vibrant because one of as we were researching this episode, one of the things I've read about is that initially when the Moxie EP was recorded, some of the band members just weren't happy with the recording. And so now listening to the tracks that Massimo has shared with us, and that's available on Bandcamp. You can go to the Unclaimed page and get them. You hear it. It's a much more vibrant sound, and you can absolutely appreciate the sound. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. And I did want to point out, so what we're playing today are the remastered tracks. So they'll sound much better than the version.
Right.
Here.
They just sound different.
Yeah, and I think so they were both released last year by Massimo's Misty Lane record label. Yeah. So I had the actual dates when they came out. I think this one was August 20th, the remastered version, August 20th of 2021.
Right.
October for the 12-inch. So.
Right.
All right. So what did you pick from the?
So I picked the last track, which happens to be a Sid Griffin track, which is called Deposition Central, the acid song. And there's a lot that I love about this track musically. So let's listen to it and we'll talk about it after.
Something happened to me when I started to get dizzy. Everyone around me, they just kept on grooving. Scary thing was that the room had started moving. Every object in the room began to slowly turn. I got this feeling in my heart like I was gonna burn. I guess I ought to know, I guess I ought to learn what I'm gonna feel with a psychotic yearn. Though everything was a whirl, thought I could see my girl. When I look in her eyes, there's nothing I despise. There's nothing I despise. There's nothing I despise. Everyone around me probably figured that I'd flip. I'd have felt right at home if I was stumbling down the strip. My soul began to feel like it was gonna rip. One of those awful awkward times on a psychotic trip. My girls all around me, their friends are all scowling. Suddenly I heard policeman sirens howling. I tripped to my knees, running out the door, wondering why I did this so far. Though everything's all a whir, though everything's just a blur. Can't you leave me alone? Can't you just take me home? Can't you just take me home? Can't you just take me home? this is so much fair. Cause I went to a party where I took a little fancy. Something happened to me where I started to get dizzy. I went to a party where I took a little fancy. Something happened to me where I started to get dizzy.
How about that organ?
Thank you. That's one of my favorite pieces of the arrangement is that I call it a bridge, but I don't know what to call it. It's this change, right after I think the last set of lyrics, and then it hits this bridge where there's a tone change, volume change, and you start to hear this beautiful organ, and you're like, okay, I'm way back in the 60s. But what I liked about this song too is it's a different vibe than Run From Home. So it's not as ba 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 ba. It's a little vibier, it's a little slower and longer. It feels longer.
Oh yeah.
So, and then we take this acid trip, take this, I started to get dizzy. But I liked a lot of the vibe of this song. And then when I found out it was a Sid song, I said, oh, that's interesting. Because I only hear him as a guitar player in my head, but I can already imagine him kind of placing the arrangement. So it was just one of those things. And I just like it. I like the song. It's a cool song.
Yeah. Oh, Kitty's in the background. Kitty is definitely wanting to take over the show. All right. So 1983, the band releases their 12-inch. Oh, wait. Okay.
Okay, so we've said Sid was in this version.
Oh, yes. Good point.
Sid's not in. He's not with the band when they record Primordial Ooze Flavored. So I wanted to add a little anecdote.
That's right.
So again, the vision, Standell's Seeds, 60s Garage. Sid was more about exploring. And so when you think about Sid Griffin, he's a student of music. He really is. He shows it.
Oh,
and him wanting to explore that 60s sound, I absolutely get it. So then as I'm reading, I come across this anecdote and I just wanted to share it. No direct quotes. So if someone knows differently, definitely let us know. So, and I quote, about this time, so 1981, about this time, Sid Griffin began to feel somewhat restricted by the definite 60s outlook of the Unclaimed, joking that if bands in the 60s wore purple underpants, then so would they. Eventually, this came to a head with Sid determined to recognize that this was now the 1980s, while Shelley Gans remained steadfastly planted in the genre of 1966. The pair's differences could not be reconciled, however, and though they remained friends, Sid Griffin left the Unclaimed in November 1981 to eventually form the Long Riders. So I like this anecdote, kind of gave me the transition, but I can absolutely see where Sid was kind of pushing the genre or pushing the influence and saying, let's take it a little further. And then when you think about these early Long Rider recordings, they were really, they were reflecting the Byrds. So they were showing a very different time, a lot of different musicality too. So I can see where, the Unclaimed got something started, and then he wanted to go further. The band wanted to go, they wanted to go this way, he wanted to go that way, and he left. And then he started Long Riders, and then the Long Riders really kind of even pushed that a little further, that 1968, that psychedelic Birds vibe. And then, he took it in a completely different direction.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
you won't hear any of those Long Riders type songs coming out from the Unclaimed.
no. But again, that wasn't the vision.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yep. Shelley Gantz had a definite vision for this band.
absolutely. And the look and the feel, the whole thing, the long, very, very Birds, early Birds,
Yep.
the long bangs and bowl cut, the whole thing.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
I love that.
Now,
that.
1983.
1983, Hysteria Records, and they do release the 12-inch, which only comes out with 6 songs on the original release. So
Yes.
they call it an LP. I would call it a mini LP. So I picked the last song on side A, so which is Walk on the Water. I couldn't find that it was on any compilation, but it was definitely a song that I was very familiar with even before the first time that I heard the album in full. So I don't know if it was played on Rodney, on the Rock or something, but so it definitely was something that I was familiar with prior. And I read a quote from Shelley in a 2013 interview, and he was, prior to this question, he was talking about his interest in philosophy. And so that led to the question from the interviewer if his love for philosophy had an influence on his love for rock music and for his songwriting. And Shelley went on to say, he said, "No, I think they're separate, but it did permeate in certain areas because I also wrote Walk on the Water. And the song is pure skepticism," he says. So he goes, "I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it's total irreverence." He said he wrote it a long time ago. "I wouldn't write it now. I mean, I think that way now, but I wouldn't write it." So when you listen to the song, he's almost got like a God complex. He says, "Walk on the water with me." So he goes, "I don't know about all that other junk in history, but walk on the water with me." So anyways, I just think it's a great song. Definitely has a good, that garage feel to it. And I thought it would be fun to share it on the episode. So Walk on the Water, last song on Primordial Ooze Flavored.
Fables come and go, stories we all know. Talk about kind of love, tales about gods above. And if you wanna walk on the water with me. Well, I'll show you things you'd love to see. Stories that I've heard, maybe a sacred word. Well, I guess we'll never know what happened long ago. But if you wanna walk on the water with me. Well, I'll show you things you'd love to see. Yeah. Now the time is right to shed a little light on a pseudo history that never did make sense to me. But if you wanna walk on the water with me. Well, I'll show you things you'd love to see. People talk about theology, wasting precious time on things never seen. Last verse. You have faith in God, that's something I can't lie. You need reality, so baby come to me. But if you wanna walk on the water with me. Well, I'll show you things you'd love to see. If you wanna walk on the water with me. Well, I'll show you things you'd love to see. Walk on
walk on the water. I like when he goes, last verse. Anyways, that's a fun song. Definitely could have fit on the Nuggets. Again, so they did a great job of fulfilling what Shelly Gantz's vision is for the band. And as we mentioned earlier, even with this record, definitely locked into that sound from '66 and delivered it perfectly. So
very, very much so. All right, so mine, we're kind of working back. So the 6 tracks, they go track 1, Lost Trails, 2, No Apology, 3, Walk on the Water, then track 4, Things in the Past, Yeah, 5, and 6, Font Walk. So I picked track 2 called No Apology. And I liked it because I liked the energy of this song. And it's a definite contrast to what I picked from the EP. So let's hear it and we'll talk about it after.
Tell me it's alright and stay out till midnight. So girl, I'll be out to see, but you won't see me if there'll be no apology. Hey! You really begged you not to run, but you said you needed other fun. When I thought the time was really great now, I thought you were not being late. So girl, I hope you're out to see, but you won't see me. There'll be no apology. Hey! Girl, I hope you learn to see, but you won't see me. There'll be no apology. Hey! You thought my love was here to stay, so you never thought twice. But you're out everywhere, it's like you pick up the price. Well, I was always a good to you. There was nothing that wouldn't do that. You cried, I made you joke, so I guess you ain't your another joke. So girl, I hope you learn to see, but you won't see me. There'll be no apology. Hey!
Hey! So
There'll be no apology. Hey! End of discussion.
I love that reverb guitar by Sid Griffin's replacement, Richard Coffey.
Yeah.
Very, very, very 60s. Just cranked up all that reverb on there. And just...
Right? And that's what I liked about this track is like, you just get lost in the beautiful noise of this. And it's all that reverb guitar. Beautiful.
Agreed.
Yeah. And it's just like, it packs a punch. One of the things that I read that I found interesting in thinking about the Unclaimed is they were in this moment of 60s music, right? That was the vision. And then they went on to kind of replicate that sound, but not necessarily being like a direct, like not just copying, but they really kind of went and explored this particular moment in 60s garage. And the look and the sound of the Unclaimed is something that's really, it's very noticeable. The Unclaimed is still playing. And I came across this quote I wanted to share. This is a quote from Vicki Peterson from the Bangles. That it was a quote from Cream magazine from March of 1986. Quote, "We were on the same bill with this band called the Unclaimed at some dive in Santa Monica. We didn't know what to expect when they came on stage with their black turtlenecks and started doing Little Girl. We just melted.
Ah,
So it was sound, look, and feel of the 60s, of 60s garage. And it's appreciated by a lot. Because I know we've talked to a number of people, a number of bands that pointed to them as a source, as a, as an inspiration. But again, isn't there an anecdote about the Unclaimed playing a bill with the Salvation Army in the Banks?
yes.
All right, Jeff.
I actually have a quote about that I had highlighted because
Please.
yeah, partially because the connection with the Paisley Underground, and partially because they're in my home area of San Diego where it happened. So Shelley is talking in this interview, and he said that while they were in San Diego, there was this quite famous incident where there was a rather large show which featured the Bangs and the Salvation Army and us. So again, the connection to Paisley Underground. It was a huge show. There were tons of mods, and there were these scummy skinheads that were there. I think you remember that time, Soraya, when the kind of people that would show up for some of these shows. And he goes, I don't think they did. They didn't do anything when the Salvation Army and the Bangs played on. But then we go on, the Unclaimed, and they start fighting with us. So go figure, he says. And they're throwing stuff and dousing us. He said he was soaked in beer. His bass player gets punched. And then it turned into like a total riot, he says. So he said, I don't know if we provoked them or if it was something in the air, but there was a combination of things. But then it was a full-blown riot. And then he noticed that outside there was a highway patrol officer, and he said, please come in, there's a riot inside. So he comes in, and then the promoter, he said, the idiot that put on the show tells me the highway patrol is the enemy and the punks were the security. So it was the punks that incited this whole little riot there. And he said it was staggering and stunning, the mentality of the time. So this big crazy riot event, no problem when Salvation Army and the Bangs played, but the Unclaimed come out with this heavy garage sound, and the place just ends up in a total riot. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Oh. All right, Jeff. So the question I have, what recordings do we have after
Oh,
Primordial Ooze?
yeah. Before we leave that, I had one last point. You mentioned the last song is Front Walk, which is the only cover, and that was a cover of a Henry Mancini song, Baby Elephant Walk, that was written for Hatari, a movie. Is that how you say it? Hatari. Anyway, so they do their own version, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's very, very good.
So then they also released a couple songs that were put out on an Italian magazine, along with the Vipers. So they put a couple songs out, My Kind and Hidden Truth, which Moxie was kind enough to tag on to the end of the reissue. So if you get the reissue, that's those two songs. So then they don't play for a while, right? And then in 2013, Mike Stacks of the Ugly Things and Telltale Hearts, who we've had on their show, gives them a call and says that he's putting on an event and he would like the Unclaimed to play. So it re-sparks this interest in Shelley Gantz, and he puts a new version of the band back together, and they released another record. And in 2019 they released You Never Come. So who knows? I mean, they were doing shows prior to the pandemic, so I mean, they still may be a thing once we get into a better position here. So there's new life for the band because they played the show and the excitement is there again. But even then, it's still his vision does not falter. It's
no.
He still has this very 60s
and still turtleneck.
Yeah.
Still bangs.
Still same vibe. Yeah. So
yeah, no, that vibe stays.
Absolutely. So the band, I mean, with as big an impact as they had, I think there's only about 16 to 18 songs that they've released. The EP, the 12-inch, 6-song 12-inch, this the songs that were included on compilations, and then you have this 2019 EP that comes out. Big influence, not a big catalog. So
Right.
but we definitely recommend that you check out the reissues for sure. So again, the Moxie EP, or the self-titled EP, was released in August 20th, 2021. And you can find that on the Bandcamp page for the Unclaimed or Teen Sounds Record. So if you go to teensoundsrecord.bandcamp.com, you'll be able to find it. And then the 12-inch EP, the Primordial Ooze Flavored, released on October 6th, 2021, for the remastered versions. Both sound fantastic. Again, if you go to teensoundsrecords.bandcamp.com, you can find those. So we wanted to definitely thank Moxie for providing these tracks and some information about the band. Definitely glad that this band is that got to see this little reissue campaign. So
Yeah.
those are still available, so you can get those digitally or physical copies. So by all means, go check them out.
Absolutely. Jeff, it's like I don't want to stop. But my big boss says it's over. So
all right. Well, you got to listen to the big boss. You have to listen to the
I apologize to everyone for my absolutely obnoxious cat. I can't figure out what his problem is. I don't know. He had opinions about the Unclaimed, I guess.
Absolutely.
Mi gente, agruliar.
Groove on, Paisley people. Meow.
Hey.
That cat's something I can't explain.
Louise, watch, and now he's gonna be quiet for the whole rest of the day.